Continue. Okay, so a PMIS, Project Management Information System, is an animal that has many names. So just as we get many breeds of dogs, and each dog breed has a different name, but they're still all dogs because they still all go woof. Just so with project management information systems, there are various words that we can use to describe them, all right? And the trick question is, which is the best dog shown in the picture? And if you get this one wrong, you're going to fail my course.
None of them.
You fail.
Best in terms of look or behavior?
Both. The best dog is that one because I have 3 of them.
It's a subjective response.
No, it's the right response. Marius, it's the right response. Okay, those are the chopettes, they're those ones with the crinklies, with the wrinkles. And you always see pictures of them when they're babies. No. Anyway, they're the best dogs. Okay, so in terms of the PMIS, you also find the terminology enterprise resource planning, enterprise project management system, enterprise dashboard, etc., etc. You will find in literature describing this animal. So, it might help if I put the microphone on. So at the end of the day, what's important is that at the end of today, you should be able to recognize a PMIS, and if they're using a different terminology for it, you should know what it is that they are talking about. Okay, so what is it? It's a framework or tool for collecting, organizing, storing, processing, and disseminating project information. Right, so normally when we start talking about a PMIS in an organization, we focus on the collecting part because we want to collect all this data. But we forget that we also have to organize it, store it, process it, and disseminate it. And we don't think further on, okay, storage, what does that mean? It means we need an IT system that will support the storage of it. Disseminating, what does that mean? It means that there are people other than the project team and the project manager that are interested in this information. What type of format do they want that information in? And we're going to talk about some of these things in more detail. Okay, so this is Dilbert's take on a PMIS. So Dogbert consults and he says, you need a dashboard application to track your key metrics. That way you'll have more data to ignore when you make your decisions based on company politics. So then the pointy head boss says, will the data be accurate? And then Dogbert says, okay, let's pretend that matters. Right? And unfortunately, this is very often the view that people have of a PMIS. Because for various reasons, sorry, my lips are just so dry. For various reasons, there's no buy-in into the PMIS, so everybody just sees it as an animal that has to be fed, right? And so they don't really care what they feed the animal with. And with any information technology or software, garbage in means garbage out, right? And so when you implement a PMIS in the organization, it's important that everybody in the organization understands the importance of the system. So what are the functions that we want out of the PMIS? So it must provide answers to the stakeholder questions. It must facilitate communication among stakeholders and team members. Right, so facilitate, not make it more complicated or more difficult. And that's often why there isn't buy-in to a PMIS, because people don't understand what it is that they actually need to feed into it and what the benefits of what they can get out of it actually is to them and to their project and to the organization. It must assist with what-if analysis. So, what happens to my project if my key resource, Tebogo, resigns? Because I've upset him. What does that mean to my project. Or Marius has made me so cross that I want to fire him. What does the what-if analysis say? Marius is very happy that I'm kicking him out. What is the what-if analysis saying to me in terms of the projects that I'm busy with in the organization? And so when I did the what-if analysis, I saw that if I fire Marius, all my projects are going to fail. So maybe I shouldn't fire him. But the other thing is also, what happens if there is a project out there which one of the people in top management is saying we should take, because this project is going to be a cash cow and it's going to make a lot of money for the organization. So then I put it into my PMIS and I do the what-if analysis, and I find that if we do that project, all our other projects are going to be late, all right, in the first place. And in the second place, we're going to pay penalties on all of those projects. So is it maybe a good idea to do this cash cow project? Because maybe the penalties that we are paying is more than the cash that this thing is generating for us. So do you see, it's no longer about making decisions based on gut feel. You can now make decisions based on the actual scenario that you have. Right, and then the last thing, of course, is to help organizational learning, and that's where knowledge management, which is the next topic that we will cover, comes into it. Okay, so the PMIS should assist people in responding quickly to opportunities or threats, getting needed information efficiently, avoiding duplication of effort, and that's duplication of effort one is very important to get buy-in. When I was at the CSIR about, 15 years ago, they decided that we needed to go to a new project management information system. And I was actually part of the team that then went out to the various vendors and looked at the various systems. And we were, as a team, supposed to look at them and make an analysis and then recommend the system. What unfortunately happened was one of the team members, who was the chairperson, basically made all the decisions without consulting the rest of the team. All right, so in the end, we bought what he wanted, which wasn't necessarily the best option. And one of the things about this system which really, really frustrated me was the fact that it had an HR component as well. So you could also manage your HR, like your leave and your sick leave and all of that with the system. But the HR module and the project module didn't talk to each other. So if I put in my sick leave in the HR system, I still had to, when I put in my worksheet, my timesheet, that's the word. I still had to, when I put in my timesheet, I still had to go and put the hours that I spent on sick leave or on leave onto the timesheet as well. And that's a very small thing, but those are the small things that the people that use it on the ground get frustrated with. All right. And then the last thing, or the second last thing is, it must provide information on previous projects. So once we've implemented this PMIS, 3 years down the line, we should be able to look at the system and we should be able to say, the previous project was this scope, so we had to build 7 walls and we used 7,000 bricks. Now we have to build 9 walls. How many bricks do we think we're going to use? You understand? You need to be able to get data like that from the system. Also in terms of man hours. One of the best project managers I ever worked with at the CSIR used to be able to do that. So although the system at the CSIR didn't actually capture this information, he would have his spreadsheet, and on his spreadsheet he would say, okay, the project took 6 months and this was the specification and we needed 7 people to do the work. And then when the technical guys, because that's the one thing about technical guys at the CSIR, is because they know it all, so they think that everything just happens like this, you know, and so when they plan, they are very, very optimistic. And so then he would take that information into the planning for the next project, and he would say, hold on a minute. Last time you told me it was going to take 6 months. It took 2 years. This was the scope of work. Now there's an added complexity and there's more scope of work, and now you want to tell me it's going to take 3 months. No. I'm not planning it for less than 3 years. Do you understand? Because that's sort of a sanity check that you can use to see. And also when you're new in an organization, if that information is available, it helps you a lot to get up to speed with estimating on your project. Then the last thing is it must provide information according to individual needs. So there are a lot of dashboards or examples later on of different dashboards that people have developed. But this statement boils down to that for the CEO, there should be a view, an overall view of all the projects. For the project manager, there should be a detailed view of all the activities, the progress on all the activities, the actual costs on all the activities, etc., etc. Whereas for the team member, there should be a view where they can see what are all the activities that they've been planned on, how many hours has been allowed for them, etc., etc. Okay, so what information do you think that a PMIS should capture for a project? I want you guys to chat about that in your groups for 5 minutes. Ayan, just come here.
includes the school. It includes
Okay, so now you were talking about what you're going to do this weekend. Let's let's talk about the PMIS. The group right there in the back. What information do you think a PMIS should capture? Sorry, talk up. Reporting? Reports. Oh, this should be information actually. Okay. You guys? Requirements. Okay, that's good, yes?
Lessons learned.
Lessons learned. You guys? Communication. What do you mean by communication?
information sharing.
Okay, so it should capture. Okay, but basically it should be used for information sharing. So this is more a use. And the same with this one, it's more a use. Okay? What's information?
Processes, policies, and procedures.
Processes. Okay, it's a ball for your group. Schedule. Right, this group here in front.
Budget and projections.
Budget and projections. Scope and have I missed any groups?
Risk register.
Risk register. Okay, have I missed any group? Or does anybody have a really pressing one that they want to share? They want to add? Yes.
Procurement plans.
Procurement plans, yes. Time frame, okay, that's part of the schedule. Stakeholders, yes. Okay, anything else? Okay, the one thing we've not addressed is quality. So probably your quality plan and how and safety and how that links to your scope and the schedule and all of that. Okay. All right. So do you think that each organization that does projects will have exactly the same information that they will capture? Why not?
Because organization differs, and you find that maybe this one is important for this organization.
Okay. Okay, so it's dependent on how important the various issues are for the organization. Okay, so cost will probably always be an issue. But profits is not necessarily always an issue, because some organizations are actually not allowed to make a profit. Okay. Oopsie. So the benefits of the PMIS is speed. So once the data are collected and entered, revision is easy. So if we all have put all this information into the PMIS, and we've put the information in with the same understanding. So if, for example, one of the things we put into schedule is percentage complete, my understanding of percentage complete has to be the same as his understanding of percentage complete. Otherwise, our projects cannot be compared to each other. Do you agree with me? Because I might say a task is only complete, a task only gets progress when it starts. Then it's 50% complete, and when it's completed, it gets 100%. Whereas he might say, okay, we work in 1% at a time. Do you understand? And so my projects will look, if tasks have just started, it will look as if my projects are behind, and his projects will look good. But as soon as my tasks start finishing, my project is going to look better, and his project is not going to look so good. So do you see, you need to have the same understanding of what these things mean. And then, as we've spoken, our projects are becoming more complex and more multidisciplinary in the modern age. And so we tend to do larger projects that have hundreds of tasks. So it's no longer just 10 tasks or 100 tasks. There can be up to 1,000 tasks that we need to accomplish. There can be tens of organizations that are working together on the same projects. If you think of something like the Gautrain, there were many, many organizations involved in building the Gautrain. And in those many organizations, there were thousands of workers that had to be coordinated. And if all of this information can be put into one PMIS, it can facilitate the monitoring and controlling of the work that's happening. So if you Google enterprise project management tools, you will find over 35 million results on Google. Do that for me, Marius, and tell me what it is today. Google enterprise project management tools and tell me how many hits you get. A gazillion. Okay, so it's increased because I did this search last year, so it's increased over the last year. All right. And if you look at the links, you will see that it's mostly vendors. So these are the people out there that are trying to sell you their solution. So how do you decide what is a good solution and what is going to fit for your organization? So the first thing that we need to do is we need to understand the external dependencies. So we've already spoken about information technology. One of the things we spoke about in terms of IT was the storage capability. So how much data are we going to generate, and how much space do we need to store all this data? But also, if we select one of these fancy systems that we've just Googled, it might mean that we have to upgrade the IT system in the organization, and it also might mean that we have to upgrade the computers of individuals, because maybe the system only runs properly if you have a Pentium 5, right? And everybody in the organization still has Pentium 4s. So how much is that going to cost you? The system is probably internet-based, but everybody in the organization does not have internet access. So what is it going to cost you to get everybody in the organization internet access? Okay, so you can see that information technology is a large external dependency. Then the next one is the clients. In what format do our clients want us to give them this information? Because remember we said one of the things is we want to avoid duplication of effort. So let's say the system gives us the report for our project and it says actual cost and planned cost. Okay? But our client is insistent that he doesn't want it like that. His report must look like this. Project A must be up here and planned cost must be here and actual cost must be there. So do you see it's a very small difference, but to make the difference takes effort because somebody now has to go and retype this. Alright, so it's important to understand, and this looks very simplistic and very childish, but believe me, you get clients that are like that. Right, and sometimes the issues can be a little bit bigger than that as well. So before you go and decide on a PMIS, you better understand what your client wants and why they want it like that, and are they completely fixed on that, and they're not going to accept anything else. Right, then the third external dependency is the human resources. So what kind of human resources do you require to keep the system running? What type of human resources do you require to get the system going in the first place? So who must be trained in your organization? How much training is needed? How are you going to train the people at the coalface that actually interface with this product? And how much training do they need? How difficult is it? How, what's the word? Close to, the word I'm looking for is something like close to the Windows interface, intuitive. Okay, how intuitive is it to use the system? Right, then the next one is accounting. So what does accounting already capture? How can we ensure that accounting interfaces to our system? And if we now say, we don't want duplication of effort, so everything must go into our system, is accounting going to be happy with it? So will they be able to do their budgets and projections according to how they normally do it? And so it's about flexibility. Is the system flexible enough to give our accountants what they need? And as you know, we've got time, cost, and scope on our projects. And cost is a very, very important one because that's the one which the accountants keep their little beady eyes on. And they actually don't care about schedule and scope. Okay, then marketing and sales. To what extent will marketing and sales need information from the PMIS? And to what extent are they going to, or rather, let me rephrase that. Have you ever been in an organization where marketing and sales have sold something to the client which was non-existent? Yes. What happened, Marius?
They sold a project, one in a look and feel that is impossible.
Okay.
Two, in a time frame that is way impossible.
Okay.
While setting a wrong impression to the client.
Okay. So that's what marketing and sales specialize in. Girls, hey, you two. Please will you either go chat outside or stop chatting inside. Okay. So marketing and sales are excellent at that. They like to sell things that are non-existent. Alright? And so the PMIS should be able to give them information so that the next time they promise an impossible schedule, they will be able to look on the PMIS and say, okay, cool guys, last time we said it would take 6 months, but it took 3 years, so maybe we should not be so optimistic in selling it to the client, and maybe we should be more realistic in the timescales that we give the client. And then the last external dependency that we have to look at is operations. Okay, and so marketing and sales are not project managers, so they don't necessarily understand schedules. So the system will have to generate a report that they can use, that they will understand. And that's why it's an external dependency we have to look at before we decide on the system. Okay, and then the last one is operations and administration. So to what extent does operations interface with our projects? So if we have a lot of refurbishment projects and maintenance projects of our own plant, then operations need access to the PMIS because they need to be able to see what projects are being planned, etc., etc. And then also the administration. How much administration? So just like here with the human resources, we needed to know what is needed to keep the system going. We also need to know what level of people do we need to enter data into the system. Okay, because a lot of the resistance to change for a system like this in the beginning is because people say, no, but this makes more work for me. Because they don't see that down the line it means less work. All right, so one has to make sure that you get that right. Because if you don't have buy-in to a system like this, it will fail. All right, then the features of the PMIS. It's okay, so this is basically the stuff that we've talked about: scheduling and network planning, resource management, budgeting, cost control and performance analysis, reporting, graphics and communication, interface, so interface to the other systems in the organization, flexibility, so that was what we were talking about when we were talking about our external dependencies. The system should be flexible enough that it gives the information that the external dependencies need. And then ease of use. So remember, that's have a Windows interface. As much as we have a love-hate relationship with Windows, that is the type of interface that we all are used to. Right, is there anybody here who doesn't work on Office suites at work? Or Open Office, that's the other one. So most of you use Office Suite or Open Office. And that's a set interface. We've all got used to that. So if you now introduce something which uses, for example, command line prompts. Does anybody here know what command line prompts are? So in the old days when DOS used to be the operating system, you didn't have a nice interface here where you could press the print button and so on. If you wanted to print the document, you had to go to the DOS command line and you had to say print and then some other slash or something and then the name of the document and then it would print. So if the PMIS has that type of interface, which is not what we are used to anymore, it will not make sense in the organization and you will have bigger resistance to change. Okay, so here are just some examples of PMISs. Right at the end, you will see there's a website that you can go to look at some more examples. So I'm not going to go through all of them in detail. This is just a sample to show you what is possible. So here is an example which would be a project reports. So it will give you an overview of all the projects in the organization. So who typically would need this one? CEO. The CEO, top management, that level, would want to see, here are all the projects in the organization. There are certain indicators, all right? And obviously we want the indicators to be green, and as soon as they're going red, we know that there's a problem and we better jump in and do something about it, all right? And ideally, you would like to be able to decide for your organization what are those indicators. So we want to monitor schedule, risk, and quality, for example. And so there should be an indicator here that shows us if there's a problem. And ideally, you should also be able to set the thresholds. Okay, so if there are 2 critical risks on the project, then the risk indicator should go red, because now we know. Whereas in another organization, they might say, no, if there are 10 critical risks, because they just have so many more, so many less risks. Do you understand what I'm going on about? Hello? Yes? No? Okay. Okay, so here is a cross-project schedule Gantt chart. So here are all the projects in the organization, and those are the schedules, and we've got some indication of percentage complete. Who do you think would want this report? Okay, the project manager maybe, but it's all the projects in the organization. The portfolio manager, yes. Or the CEO even might want to look at the specific schedules of the projects, especially if he looked at the previous one and there was a problem. Okay. Who would want this one? So this is a detailed project plan for the project, which is the office move. The project manager. Okay, because the project manager wants to see all the activities. Here is a project report that shows us the earned values calculated for this project. Who do you think would be interested in that? Sorry? The project manager, and yes, somebody said something else as well. Accounting, finance, yes. Okay, so this would be the type of detailed information that finance would be interested in. And you will see that some of the values, like the planned values, the earned values, and the actual costs, has to be entered into the system, and then the system will calculate the variances, etc., etc. Okay. So it's all about agreeing upfront what is the data that needs to go into the system, and what are the calculations that we need to make, and in what format do we need to see the data at the end of the day. And the problem with these 35 million vendors is if you don't understand what you need, they will come and tell you that their solution is the solution. Right? And the danger in that is that you then end up with a system that isn't flexible enough to do what you actually need done in your organization. Okay, so here is one that is a project summary. So it's got an overview. It tells us what the status of the project is. So this one has a caution status. It gives us the budget overview. It also gives us the schedule overview, and it tells us who the resources are. Who do you think would be interested in this type of report? Sorry? The client, yes, because it gives the client one report where they can track everything that's happening on the project. Who else would be interested in this? Have you all gone to sleep? It's hot in here. Must I put the aircon on? Sorry, you should have told me earlier. I forgot that we have an aircon. Oh, it doesn't look like there we go. I'm just going to... Yeah, okay, so if it gets too cold, then we can switch it back off again. All right, so who else do you think would be interested in this one-page summary of the project's progress? We said the client, even the project manager, all right, and probably also top management. Especially, they might say, okay, any project that has a caution of yellow or red, we want to see the detailed report on. If the status is green, then we're happy. Do you understand? So that's the type of information. Here it shows the quarter resource allocation by department. Who would be interested in that? It shows the resource allocation by departments for the next quarter, so for the next 3 months. Sorry? Functional managers. All right. So do you get the message that there are various people that have an interest in the system and they need to see the information in a certain format? Okay, this one is quite interesting. This is an organizational summary of projects. So it shows us, in terms of budget, we have 14 good projects that are open, and we have 7 bad projects that are open in terms of budget. And 15 have been completed, and they did well in terms of budget, and 2 didn't do well. And the same for schedule, and the same for customer satisfaction. So you'll see that the completed projects will have customer satisfaction sheets that have been completed. So that's quite a nice indicator for management to see, okay, how are we doing in terms of our projects. Then it tells us who the top 5 project managers are. And it somehow calculates a percentage for each of the project managers, obviously based on budget performance, schedule performance, and customer satisfaction. Okay, do you think that this dashboard would work in the South African scenario? Why not? Okay, so the South African culture is such that we would feel uncomfortable to have the top 5 project managers. All right? It would be demotivating in our environment. Whereas if you think of the American environment, and if you've watched some American shows and movies and so on, they have a very competitive environment where it's all about, being at the top and so on and so forth. So they would probably find this a motivation. Whereas in our environment, it would be a demotivation because we don't measure ourselves in the same way that they measure themselves. So do you see how important it is that you need to be able to customize? Because if you now buy a system that has this built in, which we've now already said does not work in our environment, and you're stuck with the system, and those 5 top project managers come out every week. Okay, and remember that, I'll get you now, remember that at the end of the day, tell me how you measure me, and I will then decide how I'm going to perform. All right, so either I'm going to do everything in my power and lie to the system to get into the top 5, or I'm going to say, I'm never going to get there, so I'm just going to give up. All right, so this can be very demotivating. Yes, sir, there in the back.
Yes, looking at the information needed for the PMIS, can it be used to enforce the project maturity of the organization?
Yes, it can be used to improve project maturity, yes.
People are forced to capture all this information.
Yes.
And that can somehow talk to each other.
Yes. Because the thing is that because we now are capturing things in a standardized manner, we all have to norm, so we all have to get to the same point of understanding. And it also then standardizes how our project information is captured. So that means that if we've implemented a PMIS, we should theoretically be at level 3. Do you agree with me? Because we've got standardized processes. And then depending on what we do with it, if we then use it and use it to make decisions, etc., we then become level 4. And if we then start applying the lessons learned, okay, because you'll see the other thing that's on this dashboard is 5 applied lessons learned. So not only are the lessons learned captured, but project managers also look at the lessons learned and they then indicate which ones have they applied. And then what level are you then at? Sorry? 5. Okay, because now you are busy continuously improving. Okay, so that was a very good question. Thank you. Right, and here is the top division, and there are the 5 systemic issues that we've picked up on our projects. Okay, So this is just the type of information that you can get. Here is another one where we've got all our projects and we've got on scope, we've got adequate staff, and we have on time. And so you can see that if it's doing well, it's green, and if it's not doing well, it's yellow, or otherwise it's red. So who would be interested in this type of report that tells us the status basically of all our projects? Yeah, okay, so do you see this is a nice dashboard, and this is by a different one of the suppliers than the previous reports that we've been looking at. Okay, and this is typical timesheet. So as the person that's at the rock face that's actually working on the projects, this is what I will then have to complete. I can get a drop-down list and I can see what projects I've been planned on, and I can then book on the projects. And that was the other thing about the system that we finally chose or got at the CSR, was that there was no allowance made for planning people on your project. So when people looked at this, they saw the whole list of all the projects in the organization, and then they could book on your project and you've never ever seen them in your life. And that's a little bit disconcerting as a project manager. Yes, you can still approve it at the end of the day, but people can book on your project that you've never even met. All right, so one has to think about these things before you select the system, and at least the vendor could fix that for us. But those are the types of teething problems that you can expect when you implement a system like this. Okay, so this is the website which Marius can go and check for us, www.enterprise/dashboard.com or -dashboard.com, and there you will find the newest dashboards that are available. Okay, so with the PMIS, management buy-in is very, very important. And the more the PMIS cuts across organizational lines, the easier it will be to get management buy-in. Because if top management hears that they can get this report of all the projects in the organization, and the report will tell them which projects are in trouble across the whole organization, they're much more likely to implement something like this than if it's only for a specific department. The other thing is, and I think we've spoken about this enough, the information should be in the correct format. And then the PMIS should assist in organizational learning and intelligence. So we've already discussed this. We want lessons learned. We want our planned values and our actual values from previous projects so that we can use that to improve our future projects. And then in the final analysis, a PMIS is more than just a software. Remember I said in the beginning, garbage in, garbage out. So it's not just a software. So you go out and you purchase it and you install it on everybody's machines, and happily everybody now gets these wonderful reports at the end of the day. It takes, to design, develop and run a PMIS takes considerable effort. And I hope that by this time you have understood that. Because for me, at the end of the day, you should walk out here and you should be able to assist your organization when they go into efforts like this. All right, and if you see that they're busy implementing a PMIS and you see that they are just using it as software, then as a responsible employee, you should raise the flag and say, hey guys, this is what I learned, and let's look at what are the experiences of other people out there before we think that it's just a piece of software. And in the final analysis, information is no longer a strategic asset. It is a critical enabler of success. Right, so we've got to the point in the modern world where everybody has information, but how effectively and efficiently we use the information is what makes us succeed at the end of the day. And that is my story on the PMIS. Are there any questions? All right, now you'll see that there are questions in the assignment, which I have not covered in my slides because you can all read. All right, so the notes that are handed out are essential in order to be able to answer the assignment. Okay, and that is available on my tutor already. Okay. So I suggest that you guys now sit down and do your planning for your your agile process for this assignment and decide how you're going to tackle it. There is 3/4 of an hour, and if anyone has any problems in terms of their tests, now is the time to come and talk to me. Oh, okay. Yes. Oh, thank you. All right, so I've just been asked, what about the upcoming test? I don't know if that thing is going to go back on. Okay, but the upcoming test will basically cover everything that we have done to date. All right, so there will be agile project management, emotional intelligence for project managers, critical chain, project management maturity, and project management information system. So there are 5 themes in the test. So agile project management, emotional intelligence, critical chain, maturity, and information systems. Those 5 themes will be in the next test. Okay, and there they are. So we've done these. As I've said, using MS projects, I'm not going to examine you on, because I give you enough opportunity to practice it during the assignments. And I can only really test you on it if I take you to a lab, and that's impractical. And you know me, I don't just ask the newest themes, I ask everything. All right. Because to me it's important that you have to learn how to answer questions so that in the exam you don't suddenly get questions that you're not used to. We've got preliminary dates, but I'm not allowed to give it to you yet. Okay. Okay, guys, and if we can just talk about something. Because you're writing 2 or 3 tests that week, I'm also prepared to say that I won't lecture on the 11th of October. So I can move the lecture of 11th of October to the 25th of October, like that. All right? But that means I will then lecture on 2 subjects or 2 modules on the 25th of October. Would you prefer that? Okay. All right. So what I will then do is I will then build in group work in the class that we will then do on the 25th of October so that you can get used to answering questions. Yes, Tabo?
On the assignment, you only do the program, you're not doing the review questions.
No. Just what's on the front. Yeah. But the review questions are good questions for the exam. Okay, so is that a plan? Stop the recording.